immense choreography of ships and aircraft drills, timed and repeated, designed to test communication, weapon systems, and the ability of Allied forces to operate together in contested waters. For several days, the multinational maritime exercise in the West Philippine Sea unfolded under grey skies and steady wind, a show of capability that was also intentionally a show of resolve. This iteration brought together a broad group of partners. The United States deployed the amphibious ship USS Ashland alongside the US Coast Guard cutter Midget. Japan contributed ships including JSS Ikuzuchi and Shimokita. Australia and Canada added vessels to the task group. The Philippines put several of its modern warships to sea: BRP Miguel Malvar, BRP Antonio Luna, BRP Tarlac, and BRP Cape San Agustin. Those forces carried out a range of naval operations, coordinated maneuvering, live-fire exercises, anti-submarine warfare training, and search and rescue simulations, all designed to sharpen the skills sailors, aviators, and mariners will need in a real crisis. Live-fire drills were an unmistakable centerpiece. Crews practiced engaging short-range air and surface threats, testing tracking systems, and the ability to transition from detection to engagement at a moment's notice. One of the exercise highlights was the BRP Miguel Malvar's close-in weapon system, a rapid-fire defensive gun capable of firing well over 1,000 rounds per minute to defend against nearby threats such as drones and incoming missiles. The CIWS demonstration underscored a simple fact: when multiple modern sensors and weapon systems are networked and rehearsed, the margin for surprise shrinks. Anti-submarine warfare training was another major component. Teams deployed sonar arrays, practiced coordinated depth charge and torpedo drills, and ran through scenarios meant to replicate the complexities of hunting a quiet adversary in a busy maritime environment. Surface ships and MARI Time Patrol aircraft worked together to detect, classify, and track potential underwater contacts. Meanwhile, search and rescue exercises focused on the human side of maritime operations, recovering survivors from simulated incidents, coordinating helicopters and small boats, and synchronizing medical evacuation procedures under pressure. At sea, sustainment was practiced too. Crews conducted underway replenishment, the delicate, precise transfer of fuel and supplies between ships while steaming side by side, a capability that extends operational reach and keeps forces at sea longer without returning to port. The maritime component concluded with cooperative activities designed to knit participating navies more tightly together, communications drills, combined planning sessions, and a final refueling at sea evolution that validated the task group's stamina and interoperability. Philippine officials reported the maritime component finished ahead of schedule and that all exercise ob-tub. Objectives were met. Not far from the drill area, however, other actors were watching. Over the course of the operation, naval authorities reported monitoring the presence of vessels and aircraft belonging to the People's Liberation Army Navy. In an on-the-record update, they said, "For the duration of this activity, we detected so far 4 PLA Navy warships around the vicinity of the exercise, starting from our day 1 at sea on the 24th of April until today." They also tracked 3 aircraft, a maritime patrol fixed-wing aircraft, an unmanned system observed flying above 20,000 feet, and a helicopter operating from one of those warships. Official statements stressed the professional nature of those encounters. A naval spokesperson described the behavior they observed in clear conversational terms. "Generally okay naman sila cordial ang behavior nila sa atin. No confrontation, no radio challenges. They're just here monitoring our activity." In other words, close observation with the Vate. Fee aggressive interference. The sailors operating in the area, that distinction between monitoring and harassment can mean the difference between a tense but safe exercise and a dangerous provocation. This maritime multilateral engagement formed a part of the broader Balikatan exercises, the annual, long-standing drills between the Philippines and its allies, which this year involved thousands of military personnel across land, air, and sea. Officials described this edition as the largest to date, involving a scale of forces and a variety of scenarios meant to test combined readiness across multiple domains. The message these drills aim to send is twofold: to reassure partners and domestic audiences of collective defensive capability and to deter actions that could unsettle maritime stability in the region. From the water and the flight line, we turn to the geopolitics rippling beyond the Pacific. In energy markets, one of the most intriguing developments of the moment centers on the VERF decision by the United Arab Emirates to leave OPEC, a move set to take effect on the 1st of May. Analysts frame that choice not only as an economic step, but as a geopolitical signal. Jorge Leon, a chief geopolitical analyst at Rystad Energy, commented that the UAE's departure points to a fracturing within the organization of oil-exporting countries and suggested the shift could eventually benefit political leaders who have criticized the cartel for manipulating prices. One analyst put it starkly: the move signals a broader geopolitical realignment and a falling out among OPEC's members. For consumers and markets, that realignment will be watched closely because changes in alliances among major producers can ripple through global supply, pricing, and strategic calculations. Across the Atlantic, diplomatic tone and domestic politics intersected in a rare address before the United States Congress by Britain's monarch. King Charles spoke to lawmakers, using the moment to affirm the long-standing alliance between the United Kingdom and the United States. He characterized that relationship as part of what Henry Kissinger described as Kennedy's soaring vision of an Atlantic partnership based on twin pillars, Europe and America, and stressed that the partnership is more important than ever. That public reassurance came amid strain. Britain's Prime Minister has distanced his government from America's military actions in Iran, a move that has prompted criticism from the White House. Yet statecraft still left room for ceremonial hospitality. The visiting royals were hosted at a White House state dinner where leaders exchanged formalities even as disagreements over policy were highlighted by public remarks. The president used the occasion to assert that the king agreed on limits regarding Iran's nuclear ambitions. The king did not publicly comment on that particular remark. Meanwhile, on the domestic political front in the United States, a high-profile legal story has dominated headlines. Former FBI Director James Comey was indicted in a criminal case brought by the Justice Department, an extraordinary development in American public life. The charges relate to a contested social media post that was later deleted, an image of arranged seashells that some interpreted as a coded message. The arrangement showed the numbers 8,647, a pairing of slang and insinuation that stirred fierce debate. Supporters of the prosecution argued the post was a threat aimed at the president. Critics said the case was politically motivated. Comey responded with defiant language and a public defense of his actions and of the justice system. He said, "I'm still innocent, I'm still not afraid, and I still believe in the independent federal judiciary." So let's go. But it's really important that all of us remember this is not who we are as a country. This is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be. And the good news is we get closer every day to restoring those values. Keep the faith. Back in Manila, market moves and corporate earnings painted a mixed economic picture. Philippine stock markets found some respite after a 5-day slide as investors repositioned themselves ahead of a major US Federal Reserve policy decision and as earnings season produced a mix of steady results. The peso, however, was under pressure, slipping to a fresh low, a point of concern for importers and policymakers as local conglomerates reported first-quarter results that showed resilience in parts of the economy. SM Investments, one of the country's largest publicly listed companies, reported a net income of 21.5 billion pesos in the first quarter, a 7% increase that reflected steady performance across its diversified portfolio. Consolidated revenues for the period rose to 159.4 billion pesos. Utility and infrastructure results were a notable bright spot. A company identified in reports as Manila posted a 10% growth in first quarter profit, totaling 4 billion pesos. Supported by higher build volume and an expanding customer base, the company's total build connections grew to roughly 1.58 million, while total build volume increased to 136.1 million cubic meters. Across the corporate landscape, Aboitiz Equity Ventures announced consolidated net income of 6.3 billion pesos for the first quarter of 2026, nearly double the prior year's 3.2 billion for the same period. That result included 43 million pesos of non-recurring items, and its power unit, which accounted for more than half of the company's profit contribution, reported a 71% jump in first quarter net income to 7.9 billion pesos. Regulatory approvals and capital markets activity also moved forward. The Securities and Exchange Commission approved a preferred share offering for a development company seeking to raise up to 1.5 billion pesos in initial tranche and granted shelf registration for preferred shares that will enable the firm to tap public markets as need.
Again, on the energy transition front, ACN announced a partnership with GSCASH and the provincial government of Ilocos Norte to launch a province-led solar rooftop campaign.
The initiative aims to make residential solar installations more accessible through flexible financing options offered by Fuse Financing, the lending arm of GSCASH, allowing households to install systems without traditional bank collateral. For communities looking to lower power bills and accelerate clean energy adoption, the program represents a potentially scalable approach. Politics at Home provided a lighter, yet telling cultural moment. A Philippine House lawmaker set off a wave of social media memes after misattributing famous movie lines during a debate over whether to unseal the tax records of the Vice President and her husband. Sigit Party List Representative Paolo Marculeta cited a line he said belonged to one actor, when in fact it was another's. The disputed quote, "I demand an explanation," entered the port. Chamber, as part of a broader plea for legal caution, a Kabayan Party List representative Percy Sandania corrected the record, pointing out that the line was actually spoken by Piolo Pascual's character in the film Starting Over Again, not by John Lloyd Cruz's character. The exchange was both comic and consequential. As Congressman Brian Paul Yumonzas urged, the committee should treat the impeachment proceedings with seriousness and ensure that any action complies with the law. In urging caution, he quoted a line familiar to Filipino moviegoers. "I deserve an explanation. I deserve an acceptable reason." He insisted the committee must have a lawful, acceptable reason before opening sensitive records. Taken together, these threads: tactical naval rehearsals in contested waters, strategic realignments in global energy markets, diplomatic dances between long-standing allies, high-profile legal drama, corporate earnings, and local politics offer a snapshot of a moment in which defense, diplomacy, economics, and culture converge. Exercises at sea are not only about ordnance and sensors. They are also about signaling and deterrence. The presence of watching warships and aircraft reminds us that even well-executed drills will be monitored, interpreted, and sometimes contested by other powers. For policymakers and military planners, the lessons are practical, frequent, realistic joint exercises build trust, test logistics, and expose procedural gaps before they matter in crisis. For diplomats and analysts, the UAE's change in OPEC status will require recalibration of alliances and forecasts. For investors and business leaders, the mix of steady corporate results and currency volatility will complicate short-term planning while pointing to areas of resilience. And for citizens, the theatricality and the high stakes of public life, whether in courtrooms, on the water, or in the halls of Congress, remain a reminder that institutions and civic norms are tested as surely as Shah. Ipsen Systems are looking ahead. More maritime and joint exercises are planned as part of the larger Balikatan series, an indication that partnered forces intend to keep sharpening interoperability in the region. At home, markets will keep watching central bank signals abroad, even as companies continue to post first quarter results and new initiatives aimed to expand access to clean energy. On the global stage, the consequences of shifting alliances among oil producers and political maneuvering in capitals will unfold in ways that could affect energy prices, diplomatic relationships, and regional security calculations. The week's events, from the precise choreography of underway refueling to the political theatre of misquoted movie lines and the legal battle lines drawn in Washington, offer separate dramas that are, in truth, interlinked. They show a world in which local actions, a warship's maneuvers, a company's financing program, a lawmaker's remarks sit alongside global current. Sitting alongside global current. For in politics, of power and politics, what unites them is the need for clarity, for calm resolve, and for institutions that can manage conflict without becoming conflict themselves. As those exercises concluded and ships returned to their routines, naval commanders emphasized that training and cooperation would continue. Diplomats and analysts will watch whether the UAE's exit reshapes OPEC's cohesion, while legal and political watchers in the United States will follow the high-profile case and its implications for institutions. Here at home, the stories of markets, corporate earnings, and the solar initiative point to an economy adapting to change and a political culture grappling with the intersection of law, procedure, and popular spectacle. In the West Philippine Sea, the hard work is unglamorous. Drills repeated until muscle memory takes hold, radio calls exchanged and logged, sailors practicing the precise steps of damage control and casualty evacuation. Beyond the immediate tactical benefit, of those repetitions, there is the larger strategic message that when allies and partners practice together, they increase the chance that, should a crisis come, response will be coordinated, proportionate, and effective. That is the through line across these stories: preparation, partnership, and the persistent, sometimes messy work of preserving stability in a world where stakes are high and where even routine actions are watched, measured, and interpreted.